The CEO of TikTok is appearing before U.S. lawmakers today as Washington looks at banning the Chinese-owned social media app. Xu Zichu is seeking to convince Americans that TikTok creates economic value and supports free speech. Have a look.
TikTok spied on American journalists. Can you say with 100% certainty that neither ByteDance nor TikTok employees can target other Americans with similar surveillance techniques?
Chair Rogers, I first of all disagree with the characterization that is spying. It was an internal investigation.
Yes or no? Can you do surveillance of other Americans?
We will protect the U.S. user data and fire it off from all unwanted foreign access. It's a commitment that we've given to the committee.
All right, so for more on that testimony, we're joined this afternoon by journalist and tech expert Carmi Levy. Carmi, thanks for joining us here. It's rare south of the border in Washington, D.C. in particular, to see Democrats and Republicans lining up kind of on the same side of something here, but they seem pretty unanimous in their feelings on TikTok. What kind of pressure was that CEO under, or is that CEO under today as he testifies?
I've watched a lot of these committee meetings, Nick, and this is probably the nastiest that I've seen in a very long time. And they're even comparing it to Mark Zuckerberg, and they're saying that he dances like Fred Astaire. They weren't happy with Zuckerberg. They're not happy with him. They're accusing him of being evasive. They're saying he's not answering their questions directly. He's not giving them what they want. And it's one of those rare occasions where both sides of the House will agree that this is an app that, in their view, presents a clear and present danger to national security as well as the mental health of millions of Americans, particularly kids, and they're not giving him any room to wiggle.
Yeah, and we're actually watching live right now as you and I are talking, Carmi. We're actually, live in Washington showing you a bit of the testimony so you can get a sense at least of the body language. You've heard a clip already. How would you describe, some of his answers today in terms of this? Because, he's really trying to counter the sense that so many people have about TikTok, whether it's on that side of the border or, quite frankly, this side of the border too now.
He's clearly not making any headway. I think there was an agenda going in among the lawmakers that they were essentially going to hold him to account, and we're going to force him to prove that TikTok deserves to stay alive in the U.S. It's his job to convince them, and they're not giving him any room. And so I think it's pretty clear that the very future of TikTok hangs in the balance as he tries to turn a hostile audience. But we're, about two and a half hours into this, and it's clear the questions aren't getting any easier. In fact, they're getting harder, and they're building on the earlier testimony, essentially forcing him to revisit claims that he has made that, no, the data is not stored in China. No, we are not fully owned by a Chinese entity, that, there is a global sort of picture that's not what you think it is. He's not convincing him that it's not what they think it is. And that, unfortunately, does not bode well for the future of this app in the U.S.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Because, he's really in the hot seat here. He's answering these questions. But as much as this is a Washington situation, the world is kind of watching testimony like this. This will be so high profile. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think TikTok is now like the most widely used social media platform, if not top 2 or 3 globally here. So they've got their PR talking points, talking about jobs, talking about impact on the economy, talking about, the benefits to people, et cetera. Nothing of that is landing, though, you're saying.
Clearly not. And it's interesting because obviously the Canadian government, which recently banned it on government-issued devices, and every other province and territory followed suit, as well as countries around the world. They're all watching this testimony. This will set the precedent for what they ultimately do. Many of them have also issued government device bans. But of course, the next step, the nuclear option, is full-on lights out within their borders. And so if it goes there, if the U.S. decides to turn it off, this is where it goes globally as well. This is probably the most important day in the history of this app. And also the 150 million people who use it in the U.S., many of whom have literally built their careers on it. This platform is virally popular for a reason. That sub-economy goes dark if the app goes dark too.
Carmi, so is he making any particular case at all to try to, swat down or counter the, everyone just keeps talking about the connection to the Chinese government, surveillance, oversight, spying, that kind of a thing. Is he making any legitimate headway on that? Because if he could convince people of that, perhaps he could convince people that it's okay.
He is getting some pretty good facts in. Whether he's convincing the lawmakers in that room right now, probably not. But, if you read back the transcript, he is sharing additional detail about their ownership structure, about where their data centers are, how they work, how data is stored, who has access to it. So I think in the cold light of day, once there is a kind of a more fulsome analysis of all of this information afterward, I think he will score some points. I think he's peeling back the kimono, so to speak, showing us a little bit behind the drapes of how they operate, that they are not this sort of elusive Chinese entity. And I think that's a positive from a TikTok perspective. Will it be enough long term? That's the big question. And I think we don't have an answer to that one just yet.
Okay, I'm sure you can give me an answer to this, Carmi. I know TikTok isn't necessarily, I think you and I are probably around the same age here. We're not necessarily the target market. Do you have TikTok on your phone, and would you use TikTok considering what you know?
I have TikTok on my phone because my kids use it, and I think if you're a parent, whatever your kids use, you should use as part of that dialogue with your children. And also, it's the nature of my work, so I kind of have to have it if I'm going to be talking about it. But at the same time, if I were not a parent, and if I was not a technology analyst, I would certainly not have it on my app. It's one of those, the return on investment. The return isn't great enough to justify the investment or the data security, data leakage risk that we face when we use it.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, really always good to get your perspective on things like this. Tech expert Carmi Levy, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Good to chat.
Appreciate it, Nick. Thank you.
All right.